Okay, I want to get that for, because I'm on, let me see here. All right, let me see, screen 3. How about now?
No.
Nothing still.
Oh, sorry. How about now?
Got it.
There you go. There we go.
All right. Okay, we've gotten down to, we was talking about finances and our, let me get over here. Our first point, I go back there. That God had a plan for adequate support for that of the preacher. And so we had gotten down to, well, it wasn't that one. Something's going on with my computer. It acts like it's trying to load something or other. Go on, get down there. There you go. Well, let's see. Something about death. I used that last Wednesday night in my class. Okay, other avenues of financial assistance. And sometimes, we need money. And so if we're a preacher and we're preaching away from our home, we can't borrow money from our families and so forth, and friends that we have. And so sometimes we want to borrow money. Now, why is this needed? The preacher is not being paid enough, or the preacher is a poor manager of finances when he's trying to borrow money. Now, I want to make a point. What I've always done is if we were running kind of short, then I would go and ask for my check in advance. And I've never been turned down. And then when you do that, usually the treasurer, if he's not one of the elders, or if you don't have elders, one of the men, then they may ask, about your finances. And so, if they're not paying you enough, then that's the time to tell them, well, I just can't meet my bills. So, but the point being is, do not buy by desire, but pay only by design. In other words, just don't keep on buying things. Sometimes when we convert people, what we do with them is, they'll want to give, and you preach a sermon on giving, and they feel like, they're not giving what they should, but here they are, they just come out of the world, they owe things. And sometimes we as preachers, when we want to go to preaching school and begin to preach, after we get out of there, we may have debts that we have to pay. So just don't, you can borrow money, but the preacher may have to borrow money in emergency. Preachers needs to build a good credit rating when he moves into a community. Do not borrow from an individual in the congregation. Now, I've never borrowed money from a member, if I can recall. I've tried to recall, and I have never done that. I've asked for my check in advance before, but I have borrowed money. My first located work, one of the members was a banker, and I bought a car through him, and then I always try to keep my finances from Cartersville, because that was where I was born and reared. And but finally, my member of the church here that was a banker told me that I need to borrow, I need to do things wherever I'm living that would help me with my credit. And so that's what I did. And every time I needed something, I would go somewhere, where the church had their banking account, and that's where I would borrow money or finance an automobile. But you don't want to be borrowing from individuals in the congregation. Now, if you're in the congregation and your family's there and you need money and you tell them, and I can understand that, but you don't borrow from another a brother, because it could cause some problems, some issues. And I do know that we as preachers, sometimes we get close to people in the congregation, and therefore, and they watch what we do, and they see if that we're kind of struggling with our finances, they'll offer to loan us money. But I've never tried to borrow money from a member. Another avenue of financial assistance comes from special areas of service. Now, preaching funerals, performing weddings, purchasing Bibles and religious books for those who want them, obtaining courtesy discounts from professional people, merchants, and special gifts from that of friends. Preaching that of funerals, like I said, we've said before when we're talking about preaching funerals and doing weddings, that you set a fee. You can set a fee there, find out in the area what people are charging, and it's up to you. And I always say, well, be like the one person says, how much is she worth? They're gonna pay me. And I do that in a kidding way, and people kind of laugh, but most of the time, if I travel, then I ask to be paid. But if I don't travel, it's local. I don't, whatever they want to give me, if they want to give me something. If it's some people that I know that don't have the money and can't pay it, then I don't ask for anything. But sometimes preachers will be able to get with a company, a Bible company. We'll say, for instance, the biggest one is Nelson. There used to be 2 or 3 others, but you could get with Nelson and buy books, Bibles, and they would sell them to you at a discount. In other words, like a $50 Bible, you may pay $35 to $37 for it, and then you sell it at the same price that the bookstore sells, and you make $13. But the problem with that is you have to keep up with the profit that you make because you have to pay taxes on it. But you can do that. And sometimes people will just give you money. I mean, they'll just say, here, I want you to have this. I've had that to happen. I said, well, like in a meeting or something, somebody would give me some money, and I said, well, they paying me, But there were times that I would hold meetings, and I went just for my expenses, and other people would give me money. And if they do, I say thank you, and I take it, so forth. But a good way to, and I didn't do this, I wished I had, a good way to set up, to get some money built up in a savings account is that when you're preaching a funeral or any special thing that you do and you get paid for it, that's above what you get paid, then put that in after your expenses. If you go to a gospel meeting and you do a gospel meeting and they pay you after your expenses, put that money up in a savings account for a rainy day. And I did not do that. What we did do though is always pay bills in it ahead so that we would be ahead. And the idea.
What about
I'm sorry.
I was gonna, what in regards to I know we're talking about finances. So and I do what about investing?
Yeah, I'm gonna talk about. Yeah, I'll talk about that in a few minutes.
Okay.
Well, see, if you have that money, so this is another thing. If you're holding a meeting, just like you're holding a meeting, say, for instance, they paid you, I went to one place and they paid me $1,200. I like to fail out when it did. I didn't know if I was going to be able to preach that night. I was so overwhelmed. And I said, well, that's what we usually pay. And I said, but we're not going a whole week. I said, you pay me too much. I told them that. And they said, well, we used to go to Friday. And I said, well, you can go to Friday. And they said, no, we're going to send you home after Wednesday night. So, okay, yeah. But that'd be a good thing to do. Like I said, I'll talk about that. The ideal relative to financial matters for a preacher is to realize when he receives an adequate support and when he's a faithful steward of material things. Now that's the idea. The best thing that a person can do. In other words, if you're preaching at a congregation and we'll say that they're paying you $500 a week and you barely are making means. And they then someone they come along and ask you, said, well, do we need to raise your salary, or we're going to raise your salary? How much do you need? Well, be honest and tell them how much you need. Or if you go to some other congregation and they're going to want to hire you, then make sure you get enough money, and make sure you understand that when you leave one state and go to another state, there might be some other expenses. And plus, also, most times as a preacher, when you move, the other congregation that where you're going, they usually pay. They've always paid me all my moving expense, and plus also all the deposits you have to make if you have to rent a house or lease a house. That they pay all the deposits and everything. You get them to do that. That's part of the deal of you moving. If I come here, then I'm gonna be renting a house. You need to help me find me a house, and you pay all of the give all of the deposits that need to be made. Because see, when you leave, they can get the deposits back. But places that I've gone to in reference to that is that that was part of the deal. When I moved, they paid all the deposits, and when I left, I got all the deposit money. because usually sometimes if you had a place over a year that way, some of the power companies will send you the check back. And so that's the ideal thing, is to make sure you have enough support. And faithful preachers deserve ample support. There is no virtue in financial poverty. And so congregations and preachers have to be educated relative to the minister and money. And so I preach on that. And you know, a lot of times when you preach on giving, the contribution goes down. So you always wait, if you're going to preach on giving and this week the giving was up and above the budget, then preach it next week. You see, last week it was way above that way. You know, that's the way it ought to stay. And then you know, people may not give. I don't really believe people don't give. I just don't. They just, for some reason, it happens that way. The preacher should strive for ideal relative financial support so maximum service can be given unto God. It's hard to do your work when you got financial problems. Then we talk about, you know, having savings and things of that sort. The preacher and his retirement. You're going to retire one day. Now, I'm retired, but see, I'm still working, and I work at one congregation, and they pay me, and I give it back to them because they're small and they need the money. And plus, but I work for the school, Georgia School of Preaching, and they pay us, and I pay all my expenses out of that, and then so forth. A lot of times, yeah, I have to buy books because I don't have the books for some of the courses. But there is a sense in which the faithful preacher never retires. Now, all Christians are to be steadfast, unmovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord, for as much as you know that your labor is not in vain in the Lord. 1 Corinthians 15, verse 15. So that means that preachers should continue to do everything possible, as long as possible, to advance the cause of Christ. And when I tell people, now I'm telling people that come April, I'm going to completely retire. And what I mean by that is, I will fill in preaching, and I'll fill in teaching at some places, and I'll hold meetings, but I want to spend the rest of my time helping with the work at Cartersville. And because I'm a deacon here, and I feel like I have some responsibilities, and plus I enjoy doing this because you're trained preachers to teach people others, but I also like to do personal work. And it's very difficult at times when you have to study for these courses and so forth to actually do, a lot of teaching, that is Bible studies and so forth. And so the examples of that is Jim Bill McIntyre. Now, he was up in the Nashville area, stated that the word retirement was not in his vocabulary. You know, preachers are to continue to teach and preach until the end of his life. Revelation 2:10, be thou faithful in death, and I'll give thee a crown of life. One is to be like Paul when he was facing death. Now watch what he says. He says, but watch thou in all things. Now here he says, endure afflictions, do the work of evangelist, make full proof of thy ministry. For I am now ready to be offered, in the time of my departure is at hand. I have fought a good fight. I have finished my course. I have kept the faith. Henceforth there is laid up for me a crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, shall give me at that day, and not to me only, but he says, unto all them also that love his appearing. And so Paul was ready to die, but you know, he's working. He was still working. He's writing to Timothy. Timothy's a preacher to Ephesus, and he's writing to him to encourage him. And Paul's doing what he can. Also, Burton Kaufman and Perry V. Cotham, they're not, different names, last names, were still preaching when they were 100 years old. And I got to hear Brother Coughlin, after he turned 100 years old. He preached at the Memphis School of Preaching, and with his voice and everything like that, you couldn't tell that he had lost anything. You know, he was a dynamic preacher. I mean, he was just a great preacher. Now, Ray Frizell was still doing full-time work at the age of 92. Now, I hope to be alive when I'm 92 and doing what I want to do, but I always tell people, but I'm ready to go whenever the Lord calls me home. So those of us who have, quote, retired, and I say that because they still preach and teach by preaching for small congregations, or until a congregation hires a preacher should be, or fill in when the local preacher is gone. And so I want to fix that too. So I won't have that problem there. Where the preacher's gone, gospel meetings, speaking on lectureships and things like that. I, like others, intend to keep on preaching and teaching until the Lord calls me home, or are no longer able to do it. And sometimes I think I'm getting dementia because I forget things more so than I've ever done in my life. And I used to be somebody that I remembered names and places and all that kind of stuff. Now, those things are slipping by now. And so, but preachers become diminished in their energy level. We grow old and we reach the point where they can no longer carry on the full-time work. And that was my problem, that because of, I always blame it all on Agent Orange, but all the events that Agent Orange does to an individual, and it seemed as if that all of mine came at one time. And so, but there does come a time when the forces of nature force them to slow down and cut back. And that's what I'm going to be doing. For those who have been dependent upon the church for their livelihood, it is important for them to look ahead and prepare for that day when they will no longer be supported by the school. So we must have a retirement plan. Now, I have been blessed. I mean, I'll just tell you, I've been blessed. And you'll see later when we talk about having a contract with the congregation, and a contract with the congregation, like it helps you financially. But within my agreement with the eldership, I had to put so much of my money back for that retirement. And that I started that when I came to Cartersville, and that was very helpful for me to do. But also because of my disabilities with Agent Orange and so forth, then I have my retirement is actually the VA. The VA pays me, but I also have a good Social Security. We'll talk about Social Security also. So one must have a retirement plan. There are reputable financial planners that will create. I don't. That just don't sound right. Will help you create a personal retirement. Okay. You'll always be able to find some. Sometimes you find one in the congregation where you're preaching, and or you can ask other preachers. You know, do you have a retirement plan? And remember, we'll talk about Social Security, but you'll have Social Security. But first of all, that was all the introduction that we had last week. It was more introduction, but you have a budget, and it is simply, as we call it, a map of income or outgo. Now, like I told you before, I wanted to be an accountant. That's what I was going to be studying. I studied data processing, and I was studying to be. I'd studied accounting in high school, and I was studying at LaSalle University until I became a Christian. So I wanted to preach. So you have to have income and outgo, and so this could be set up and kept up by using Microsoft Excel. And I would encourage everybody, if you're going to be preaching full time or if you're going to be preaching part time, and you got to keep up with all of your finances, all your expenses and preaching, then Microsoft Excel, you can fix that thing. You can learn how to fix it so you can put in all your expenses, and it keeps up with your expenses and things of that sort. And I'm going to refer some things to you later that you can get the ideas from what's supposed to go on there. But if your outgo exceeds your income, your upkeep will be your downfall. That's a quote. No one should live beyond their means, and sometimes people try to do that, and eventually you get caught up on. The Lord, one's given to the cause of Christ should be the first item in the preacher's and all Christians' budget. In other words, what we're going to give. And it is hard to preach, seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, Matthew 6:33, if the preacher does not practice that his personal giving to that of the Lord. And so you make sure that if you're going to preach on giving, that you are giving. And when you fix a budget, when you get ready to go and you're going to go full-time preaching, or if you're just going to do part-time preaching, you still got expenses. And expenses is more than just gasoline and oil change and tires, because you do have to buy tires. You have the upkeep of the automobile. You got to have insurance on the automobile and things of that sort. And plus your clothing. Okay, you're going to, unless your wife's going to do your shirts. My wife did that all the time until she got where her hands, so she can't do that anymore. And so she washes them, and I carry them to the cleaners, and they press them. And so things like that, you have to remember that. And plus, you're going to have most preachers wear a suit or a coat and tie, and and so you need that. Like we say here, food, clothing, shelter, transportation. These are the essentials of life, and these should come next in one's budget. You put the Lord's what you're going to give to the Lord first, and then you come down through here. Now, if you're already in debt, I mean, in the sense that we say that, and you're going to get an amount of money, you know how much your car payment is and things of that sort. You know that. You know how much your life insurance is, your hospitalization insurance is. You know all of that. And you always try to keep up with that. Now, major medical insurance should be next. You need insurance, and it's expensive. And so with me, again, I was very blessed in sense that I was wounded in Vietnam. And I did not receive a Purple Heart until 2004. That was actually 36 years later. And the only reason I asked for it, and I've been wounded twice, the only reason I asked for it was because anybody had the VA changed, anybody that had a Purple Heart had free medical care, except for that of dental. And so I said, hey, so I contacted the people that were with me that day, and the company commander who saw me that day, and they all filled out affidavits, and they awarded me quickly because of that. And so I didn't have to worry about insurance except on my family. And then my wife went to work, and the people that she worked for, they paid for the family. So, I got free insurance too. So, but I didn't need all that. But major medical insurance. Notice what he says in 1 Timothy 5:8, and we usually, when we preach on this, we're thinking about people that are loafers and things like that, but it applies to us too. But he says, but if any provide not for his own, especially for those of his own house, he have denied the faith and is worse than an infidel. So we need to make sure we're taking care of our family. If we are doing full-time work, get enough pay to pay all of these things. And if the people say, well, that's just too much money to pay, don't take the job, and unless they say, well, we'll pay you all we can and you can get an outside job. Now, if you want to get an outside job, then that's just fine. Or if your wife is going to work, then that's just fine. But do not take a job, a position as a preacher in a congregation where they're not going to be able to support you. And I've been at the congregations, like I said, we were in a downfall in the States in the 80s, and I was preaching a congregation that's part-time, and I moved to a congregation. I didn't feel no recession to me. I got my money. I got the amount of money that they said they'd pay me, and I never heard anybody claim too much about their pay. I do know one year, nobody in the congregation, they didn't get, during that time, they didn't get raises. And so when the elders came to me, and I'd already heard that, I said, well, members of the church didn't get a raise, so you don't have to give me one, but they did anyway. And so, because we were growing, and so our budget had gone up, so they gave me one anyway. Have life insurance on yourself, your wife, and your children, and especially yourself. Someone, when you talk to some of those insurance people, they're there to sell insurance. So you have to make up your mind what kind of insurance. We'll talk about that in a little while that you're going to take, but also have enough insurance at least to bury you, but also have enough insurance so that your wife and your children will be able to, get resettled somewhere. And the wife, the mother of your children doesn't have to go to work real quickly. So that type of thing. You can buy good whole life insurance, but also you can carry a term insurance real cheap. But you can't keep it because eventually it's going to go way high. But children's education expenses, sometimes when you move in a place, you're not going to like the schools. I was in a place, and these people were kind of prejudiced, and the Black community, the Black population was in the school was probably 96% Black. And so when my daughter got ready to go to school, they were wanting to send her to a private school, and they were going to pay for it. Members were. And I said, no, she's going to go to public school if she goes to school here. Well, I moved. Eventually I moved. I made up my mind to move and moved. And because I didn't think it was right. I wanted my child to be with all different people and be able to, learn to get along with people. And so, but you have to remember that you may be in a place where your child cannot get a good education. It may be a terrible place. And some of the, not only that, now a lot of preachers' family, they teach their children at home, homeschool. And so in a lot of places, when I moved back to Carsville, there was a bookstore here owned by a Baptist preacher. And up in the top of his bookstore, he had homeschooling places, a homeschool place where they could go up there and he had books and everything so that homeschoolers would come there. The parents could and get books and borrow books and use books. And so they didn't have to pay a lot. So you may find somebody like that in the congregation. If your child's in the first grade, somebody else has already gone through the first grade, they may loan you their books. So you remember that retirement funds should be considered. If you if you go someplace and you're making out a budget, I put me whatever you want to put down there. If you're going to give $100 a week to the Lord's church, then you ought to stop for a moment and say, well, how much I going to put away for me so that I can retire someday. And you notice what the next thing for I ought to really put that in black and color it, underline it. Well, it didn't underline. Underline. Now, some people would say, well, you're telling me stay in Social Security because you want to get yours. Well, I'm getting mine. I had to pay Social Security. Some people, I got out. And for some other reason, I can't remember why, but I got out because I was going to do annuities and things of that sort, help myself. And but I came on hard times. And so I had to cash those things in. And when I did, there came an opening that you could get back into Social Security. And I went back into Social Security. And so did a friend of mine. He had gotten out too. We both went, but we had another friend that did not do that. And right now he has no income. He's same age as we are. The first one I mentioned, he's younger than me. And one that didn't go back in Social Security, I think he's a year older than I. But he has nothing. He can draw nothing. Now, one thing about Social Security, if you were didn't want to pay Social Security on your income from as that of the church, but you was going to work a secular job, you have to pay on a secular job. And some of these people who work for the federal government don't get Social Security, but they got a way around that. When they retired, they went to work somewhere, and Social Security was withdrawn from their salary. And when they had enough quarters in, I think it's called quarters, they had enough quarters in, then they retired again and draw their Social Security. They was getting federal government pay and Social Security because they had to pay them. But you must pay Social Security on your salary and federal income tax on your salary after deducting your work as a preacher expense. Okay, if you can, we talk about that. Usually the congregation pays half of your Social Security and the preacher pays half. You can have the congregation to deduct it from your salary and let them send the check to Social Security. No, make sure they give you a copy of the check that they paid Social Security and you hide it. I mean, you keep it. A good friend of mine, the congregation was supposed to be paying it. Come to find out, they didn't. They were not paying his part, their part. And he draws a small Social Security check and now he's having to work, even though he's not able really to work on a full-time basis. So he's doing something else that he can do as he can. So you just make sure that they're paying it. Make sure that they give you some kind of receipt or a copy of the check or whatever they do. That you want to make sure that it's paid. Or you can do this. Now you can go, I'm going to give you a round figure. Let's just say that Social Security now is, I think it's like 15%, pretty close to 15%. But let's say 15%, you're going to pay 7.5% and the church is going to pay 7.5%. Okay, you can tell the church to pay you all of it and you will pay Social Security. Or you can tell the church to take out Social Security on you. Matter of fact, they're supposed to do that. But if they include it all into your salary, you're responsible to pay the full amount. And now that's what I did. I paid the full amount. And so I knew it was paid. The whole 26 years I've been at Cartersville and other places, I paid my own. I paid all of my expenses because I had a contract. And in that contract, everything that I needed is in there, and I paid everything. Nobody paid anything for me. Now, I lived in a preacher's home. And they paid the utilities. That included TV, cable, okay? Everything that I needed as utilities, they paid water bill, electric bill, and cable bill, telephone bill. It was there, they paid all that. That was what we agreed to. But when I got my own place, the congregation sold the preacher's house here in Cartersville. and they pay me an allowance. And so most of the time, if you go into a place, then, you know, and you're going to have to buy your house, you're going to have an allowance, a housing allowance. And we'll talk some about that. You can have a contract. I noticed here I said with the congregation, point number 8, we'll discuss this, about having a contract. And some people don't like even the word contract, but protect yourself. Okay, that's what you're doing. Yeah, and plus you're trying to help yourself so that you'll be able to really give more for the church and less to the government. Now, but that's not the way with Social Security. You have to pay Social Security on everything you draw, but not income tax. Many of those who get out of Social Security never set up a retirement plan. So if you get out of Social Security as a preacher, your Medicare will cost more when you retire. Okay, like I think now we're paying $139. I think some of those who got out did not have Social Security. Theirs is 179, 189 or something like that a month because they didn't pay Medicare tax. So then there comes the idea of IRAs. Preachers can and should invest in individual retirement accounts, IRAs, either traditional or Roth. Again, Edward Jones is one of the best places that we found, and members of the church encouraged us to go there. We had members here at Cartersville that used Edward Jones, and you get to know them personally. They give you someone, and you get to know them personally. I mean, they'll send you ours does this. They send us birthday cards, and you know, when we go in to ask them anything, we don't have to have an appointment. If it's necessary right then, they will talk to us. Most of the time they like for you to do it by appointment, but these people here, everyone that we've had 3 different agents. And so the one we got now, he is just great. Even though that we are retired from that, we don't have stock anymore. We took it out and put it in a retirement in one of those things, RAs, something else. So we have to draw out. I think it's just at 403, but any money drawn out of a traditional or Roth before age 59 will be taxed as a minister's current tax at the minister's current tax rate. There are some extenuating circumstances that allow for early withdrawals. Okay, plus a penalty will be imposed for the early withdrawal. One must begin withdrawing traditional IRA money when he reaches 72. When Linda and I reached 72 2 years ago, we started drawing out. And so, but when he draws it out, when they pay us, we put it in our savings account. So, so that we'll have it, because we don't spend it. We live off what the my VA thing pays, and all our Social Security stuff we try to save. We spend it now, don't get me wrong. We have a big old pile of money. We do spend it, but we try to live off of the VA and save all we can. And so one must withdraw at 72. Traditional IRAs continue to grow tax-free until the time one begins withdrawing from them, while contributions to a Roth, let me put a period there. It messes up everything. But while contribution to a Roth IRA do not allow for a tax deduction at the traditional IRA, the proceeds of a Roth IRA, unlike traditional IRA, are not subject to income tax when they are excess. In other words, you pay the tax on it before. And so mine, I had one, and it was called a SEP. And what I put in there, I paid income tax on. And I'm trying to think. At one time, I paid on mine. Then I cashed mine in, rolled it over. Is what I did. Any questions? Now I'm not a person who knows all about these things. Okay, I just know some of it. The 403B plan, whatever that is, this plan is like the 401k. That's what we have, 401k. For others, it's also also a means for the self-employed preacher to create retirement funds. That's what it's there for. And so both the preacher and the congregation may contribute to tax-deferred money to this plan. In other words, again, say you have this plan, the 401k. My wife had one of those, and if she put $25 a week in that, the company she worked for put $25 a week. Now they had a limit. You couldn't say, well, I'm gonna put my whole check in there so you can double my money. They didn't do that. They had a limit that they would go, but they tried to get everybody to have 401k. So any financial institution can explain how this works and how the congregation can cooperate with a preacher in establishing and funding such a plan. It's like if you have one and you're putting $25 in it a month, and the church is going to put $25 in it a month, they may want to put in it all at one time. In other words, $600. They may want to do it at the very beginning of your employment. That way, put $600 in there. You've got one. In other words, they've had you set up one. You've got one. And so you put $25 a month in it also. The next year, they're going to put $600 in, so forth. Let that be part of your package. Now, where did I get to? Oh, there are portable plans that can go with the preacher from one congregation to another. And that 401k is one of those. You can change it. Linda, when she worked at one place, she rolled it over to another place. And you can do that. Once the preacher retires, he can roll the 403b plan into a self-managed IRA. And basically, that's kind of what we did. We have it now. Like I said, we have to draw out of it. So we just rolled everything, sold all of our stock and put it in one thing. And because her 401k was stock money also, we put it all in one thing. She has hers and I have mine. And so every year they take out whatever we draw out, they take out the income tax, and so that we don't have to pay it. And so it's paid. Churches should work with their preachers in establishing these plans by determining a fair annual pay package and then apportioning that package into salary, housing allowance, major medical insurance, retirement, etc. We'll see some more about that in a minute. Any questions? All right, you've heard of annuities. Fixed annuities, as opposed to variable annuities, also can be good investments, but should not be relied on as the sole means of funding one's retirement. It's great when they sit down, and I sold insurance. I sold life-term insurance. And it's great to sit down with someone, and I didn't sell annuities. I sold, in other words, you'd buy a term, if you spend $100, let's say, I don't say that. If you spend $20 a month on your whole life insurance policy, I could get you a term policy for 10 times what you had, and then plus you could have put probably $12 every month into stock or a retirement plan. And it sounds good, but you have to do that all your life. And the thing of it is, I went back to whole life insurance. I did eventually, but I sold that. It was good. I mean, I made good money, but I just didn't have time. I want to teach people the gospel. I didn't have time. So you have to remember that about annuities. But a congregation might also provide their preacher, that should be. I had to type all of this. Their preachers with a retirement annuity. In other words, it's something that they pay. Now, I've never had anybody pay mine, so I don't know about that. Many preachers give a number of years to a single congregation. It is in order for those congregations to help provide a portion of the preacher's retirement. And so that's what happened here at Cartersville. They said, you need a retirement besides Social Security. And so that's what they did. They helped me. They said, well, we're going to give you this amount of money and in your check, and you need to, I think it was 15% of whatever they paid me, I had to put into investment. Then there's any question on fixed annuities. Then there's what they call universal life insurance. Term life insurance equals more coverage for far less annual premium. Now, if you possibly can, I mean, you can take out, you can pay for your, you can go now and pay for your burial if you were to die. My wife and I paid $13,000 a piece. We paid it bi-monthly. It was just an insurance policy that, paid up insurance policy. And so when we die, everything's there. It's already been paid for. The blanket's been paid for, everything's been paid for, and they can't change it. They can't change the songs. They can't change anything. You can put that in there. This is going to be my way, nobody. But so congregations might provide that, but because of you've been there for so many years, and that is great. And some, when you may go as a young preacher, if I was an elder in the church and you were this is your first located work, then that's what I would do. I would sit down with and says, okay, how much do you need? And you were to tell me, say, well, we need, I need, if I'm gonna have to house a housing allowance and everything else, I need, and I have 2 children, or 1 or 2 children if you have, and I got to have this. So I'll say, okay, we're going to pay you $1,400 a week, okay, for your work, but we're going to give you $1,500 a week, and that $100 is we want you to invest in an investment for your retirement. We're going to let you. We want you to do it so that if you ever leave here, you can carry it with you and just roll it over. Well, really, it's going to be in your name, so it's going to follow you wherever you go. And so, and then since you've got it started, you can always tell the congregation that goes, says, well, after they say they're going to pay you. In other words, you would include that you could put out as an expense retirement $100 per week or $100 a month, however you're going to do it. So you could whole life or universal life bills cash value. And sometimes they'll loan you the money, but boy, they'll charge you the charges. I mean, inserts on those whole life policies. But whole life policy is very good because it bills cash money. And eventually, my wife, when her parents, her dad died, mama died, then her dad died. When she got her part of that, and she went and we invested something like $30,000 on a paid up life insurance policy for her. And when she dies, it's going to be worth at least 75, 70. I'm gonna just say $70,000. And see, so our children and her parents' grandchildren will get that money divided by 4 because it's 4 of them. But that was what we sold the house. We actually bought the house, but we sold it and we took the money that we sold it, we paid for the house, and we put it in that on Linda, because when she dies, they will get the money, And so you can do the very same thing. You can fix that up. You can buy paid up insurance. Okay, home ownership. The preacher evangelist should own his own home. There are some distinct tax advantages to the preacher being given a housing allowance with which to provide his own home. Now, I know of preachers that became what we call evangelists. They was not working with one congregation, and they bought a house, and they bought the house in the area where their family lived, because that's where they would go back, or maybe where the congregation that was their sponsoring congregation, they had it there, and so when they would leave, say if they was going to be gone for a year or so to someplace, then they would rent their house, and somebody in the congregation would take care of the house, or somebody in their family would take care of the house. And that's all good and well. If you buy a house, say for you're the preacher here, I'm the preacher here, I buy me a house in Cartersville, and I would stay here for a long time, 10 years, and all of a sudden I want to move, or they want to change, and so I move. Well, I've got 10 years of value in that home. And so therefore I can make up my mind, do I want to keep it and rent it out? But if I have family here, I would go to one of them and says, look, will you take care of this? In other words, my payments every month is $500, and I'm going to rent it for $700. So you have $200, every month to be able to take care of it. Whatever you want to do in reference to that. A lot of congregations have gotten away from owning a preacher's home because it's just too much expense. Eventually, anything happens to it, the church takes care of it. But if it's your house, anything happens to it, you take care of it. So that's the way to look at it. And every place I lived before I bought a house, is they liked me because I could do most of the things that needed to be done. We didn't have to call someone to come to put a new hot water heater in, because I could do that. And so, and so I would do my own work like I do now. Okay. Any question on any of that? I talked so long, my coffee just barely warm. Okay. Number 8, work agreement with the congregation. Okay, we're going to read this. Agreement with the elders. Now they're going to be listed later on, and Bobby D. Gate. Purpose of this agreement is to define in broad terms the duties of the local minister of the Cartersville Church of Christ. This agreement will be in effect, and you put the date. The law used to say you had to do this every year. Okay, so you can do that. You change it, and you can get the elders to sign it. This agreement will be in effect, whatever date it is, and will continue until either party terminates this agreement with at least a 90-day notice. Any changes in duties and salary will be amended as needed. Now, used to you had to do every year at your time of your anniversary, and no, I'm sorry, the anniversary. Yeah, well, really, it's your anniversary or when you got a raise, whatever it may be. Then you'd have to redo this. But yet we understood later that you could do it like this here, and then you amend it. Okay, you just go and amend it, and the elders will sign that, and they keep copies of that. Or it may be easier just go ahead and do it for a year at a time, however you want to do it. The following guidelines are provided to indicate what is expected of the minister of the Cardinal Church of Christ. Now you have input in this. Number one, absolute doctrine soundness is the primary employment condition. If you get up and preach error, then they have cause to fire you, because you're making this is an agreement that you're making with them. Absolute doctrinal. Now, when I teach on some things like the Holy Spirit or Book of Revelation, things of that sort, I usually say, well, now the brotherhood, this is what they believe as a whole, that they believe that the Holy Spirit works through that of the Word of God. Now, then there are other questions that come up, and here's what I would give those, and I say, here's what I believe. I believe that it was miraculous. The gift of the Holy Spirit was the miraculous gift that was given to given by the apostles on the apostles, and once the apostles died, nobody else could pass them over. That's what I believe, and that's what I teach. And so, but that's not doctrinal error, because a lot of people in the brotherhood believes that. But if I were to get up and say, I believe that the Holy Spirit guides and directs me today, yes, through the Word, but outside the Word also, He does other things, then I've got a problem. And if I were to say that, then they had a reason to get rid of me. All right, any question on that? All right, number two, personal conduct should reflect the highest Christian moral and ethic standards at all times. Place that I preach, let's see, one, two, probably the third or fourth preacher that followed me, when he left there, he wasn't welcome in any of the grocery stores. That's how he was. It was a shame. It was a shame and reproach of the church. And even when he left a phone bill, because he knew he was leaving, and he left a phone bill for $900 something, and it kept coming, and then they finally talked to the church, and the church paid it. And as far as I know, he never paid it back. But you always have the highest Christian moral and ethics standards, Also, you set a good example of faithfulness and punctuality. In other words, you're always on time. Now there's exception to that, and we understand that. If you had an accident or something, we understand that. But you set a good example of it. Set a proper example of honest work. Devote the equivalent of at least 5 day, 40 hours weekend. Okay. Now, any question on that? In other words, you're being hired not for 7/24 or 24/7. You're actually being hired for 40 hours a week, and they need to understand, and you need to understand that Sunday is one of your work days, because that's the day you work. Now, some people don't look at it that way. I always had 2 days off. I always took Saturday and Monday off, and then I got work, because I work most of the time. I'm a workaholic, and so they'd come and get me and take me fishing 2-3 times a week. Or tell me to take off. So you need to go home. I said, well, I thought I was at home. No, you need to go to Cartersville. But do you understand that it's not that you have to keep up with your time. Now, you may have a congregation, you may have some of those fellows that want you to keep up with your time, and all you got to do is buy your book, a little time book, and put everything in it. But maintain regular office hours at the church office. We'll talk about that later. But if they have a church office, use the church office. I've always liked the church office because my car sits out front. I know when I retired, we had people who were preaching elsewhere, and they'd come up through 41 when they was going home or going traveling. And they said, "Oh, we're going to miss your vehicle sitting out in front of the church building." So, but you might be like that one fella. They would call and ask his wife, says, "Is brother Joe home?" Says, "No, he's on visitation." And then says, they call back, says, "Is brother Joe home?" He said, "No, he's in his office." And they said, "Okay." The name of his bed was office. The name of his boat was visitation. So, that's what he was doing. So, you want to maintain regular hours. And the reason for that is because, I always try to do my work early in the mornings. And then when I go eat lunch, I can go home. I can cut my grass. I can do what I need. I need to visit. I go visit. There are sometimes in the mornings you have to visit somebody. In the mornings they're going to have surgery, and I've always tried to be there for them. Even though we would have elders, and they have some elders that were retired, and they would come too. But I would also try to go. I wanted the members of the church to know that, I love them. I wanted them to be, well and taken care of and stuff like that. And one place I had only been there a week, and something happened with one of the members, and went up there, and I stayed all night with those folks because it was touch and go. And one of the elders came, and he stayed up there a long time. Finally, he had to go home because he was older and everything. He went home, but he got up the following Sunday and says, "In my opinion, Brother Gaten's already earned his whole year's salary just to be able to watch this family and how appreciative they were of his just being there." And it made me feel good. But the point is that we have responsibilities as Christians. We're preachers, but we do have responsibilities as Christians and so forth. So you maintain those. Working hours are flexible in order to allow hospital visits, which requires the minister's time during the office hours. Fridays and Saturdays are considered off time, and that will change. That was the way it was here at Carson. Friday and Saturday I was off. And but after a while, when you're at a congregation and they see your work ethic, they will see that you're doing your work. They may come by the church office sometimes, and you're up there because maybe one day on let's just say on Wednesdays, you get up after Wednesdays and so forth. Say on Mondays, you start for your sermons for the very next week. And just say, for instance, that someone says, "Look, I'm gonna have surgery in the morning, and I'd like for you to be there." Well, that takes away your usually your plan. And so they may see you up there Monday night, doing your work. And so eventually they see your work ethic, and they don't say anything. I had one of the elders place I was says, "You need to go visit Sister Ingram." And she said something. She lived right the close church building, and I hadn't been up there. Well, she didn't come. She fixed dinner for everybody on Sunday, and everybody went up there and ate. And we did, but we quit when we saw that she was forsaking the assembly. She got where she didn't come at all. So I'd go up there and talk to her about once a month just to make sure that I was taking care of my duty. Any question on that? Now, again, like I said, sometimes people will want you to maintain church hours, and they will say to you, like, we want you to be there between 8 and 12 o'clock. And then you go eat and come back and stay till about 4 o'clock, And then I had one preacher, I told him, he said something to me about what it was. And I told him, "What am I supposed to do after 4 o'clock if somebody calls me to have an emergency at the hospital? Am I supposed to go up there for the preacher or go up there because I'm a Christian?" Because they were strict with him. I mean, he had to hand it over to him exactly what he did on Monday between this time and this time. I told him, I said, "I could find me another place to go." I said, "I can understand. We want you at the church building between 8 and 4 o'clock, and you have lunch, and you go to the hospital or any other place you need to go that's the work of the church. You do that." Well, I don't have a problem with that. But writing it down, keeping up with every little thing I'm doing, I have a problem. I really do. Okay. Federal and state holidays will be considered as a day off unless otherwise directed. Time off for emergencies will be discussed on a case basis. And I've never had a problem in congregations that if something happened to my family up here in Cartersville and they were real sick, then I could come. If it's Linda's family, most times she would come and I'd stay at home, and most time with the kids and take care of the kids. And they understood that. Now, on these holidays, there's so many of those, but basically, it's not really right for Brother Joe Doe to get paid on Labor Day and he gets paid for it, and plus he gets off. It's not right for you to get paid, but you got to work, you know. So, you know, I put that in there because I wanted days off just like everybody else. If I wanted to go camping, or if I wanted to go, you know, to the lake and cook out and everything on the 4th of July, that's what I wanted to do. And so then 2 weeks of paid vacation per year will be provided. Dates will be coordinated with the elders. Okay. The minister will be granted 2 weeks for meetings and 2 weeks for lectureships. Dates are to be coordinated with the elders. Expense per lectureship is, and hit the congregation at Cartersville, they gave me, I think it began with about $250, and when I retired, it's about $500 every time I go to a lecture, two lectureships. I only went to 2. Other speaking engagements are to be cleared with the elders. In other words, if you got 2 weeks for meetings and 2 weeks for lectureship, and you're not going to go to the lectureship, then you can take 4 weeks for meetings. You get that kind of clear. So, well, I'm not going to lectureship. You make sure you get clear with them, you know, that you're going to use one of your lectureship weeks, because they won't pay you that expense if you're going to go preach. But the dates are to be coordinated with the elders because, you know, and I always try to give my dates early. I would let them know. And I would work my vacations and so forth around any gospel meeting, vacation Bible school, or any kind of thing that the church was having. I did not want to be gone when the church was having any kind of event. And now other preachers are gone, but I just did not like to do that. I wanted to be there with them if they were having a gospel meeting and so forth. And so you arrange all of those things. Other speaking engagements are to be clear with the elders. You may be that you've already got 2 weeks. Say, for instance, you're going to go up to Detroit, Michigan, and you're going to hold a meeting, and then you're going to go Free Hardeman lectureship that week, and then you're going to go to Get Well lectureship that week, and then you had another meeting down in Mississippi, you know, and you got all those coordinated with them. And so you've taken up all your time, but all of a sudden, here's a small congregation down there in Mississippi. They came over and heard you preach and said, can you hold a meeting for us? So you go back to the eldership and says, there's a congregation down in Mississippi that would like to have a gospel meeting. They asked me would I do it, but all my time's taken. What do y'all think? And you may be surprised. They said, well, can they afford to pay you? And if they say no, you say no, they're not can pay me. I was going to do it for free, you know, unless I could find somebody to pay my expenses. And usually the congregation will pay your expenses. That's what's happened to me. You know, you're honest with them. I'd like to go. Or if you want to send me somewhere, let it be known with the eldership. If you want to send me somewhere to, you know, preach for a small congregation or so forth, you know, just let me know. Now there's something that was not in here. We have those Wednesday night things, you know, summer series. And you'll be called upon sometimes about 3 or 4 times a year to be a part of one of those. Make sure you clear it with the elders. Always make sure that, or the men of the congregation, that you're going to go there. And most of them will agree to let you go because it's a change, you know, and somebody in the congregation will take your place teaching the class on Wednesday night. Okay, prepare and present sermons on Sunday morning and Sunday evening worship service. Arrangements for others to speak must be clear with elders. Now, we started here at Cartersville, we started a training class, Brother Mike Gifford did. And so on Wednesday nights, any of those people, after they've been in the class for a while, any of those people would want to offer the invitation, make a devotional and offer the invitation. I say, it don't bother me. Anytime they want to do it. We have one fellow, Brother Doug Redmond, he did it for, I want to say for about 15 months every Wednesday night. And he grew spiritually and knowledgeable. So you make sure arrangements will be clear with them. And sometimes the elders will say, well, while you're gone, I'll speak or I'll teach. Number 10, the minister is to see that a church bulletin is published weekly. Now, notice what it says is to see. It doesn't mean you have to do it. But most preachers like doing that. And if you have a secretary, they do it. But most places I didn't have a secretary, and plus I enjoyed doing it. The minister is to write an article for the local newspaper under the heading, Let the Bible Speak. And I wrote those, and just recently I was looking for them, and I've lost every one of them. So I don't know what's happened. I think I used to have the paper copy, but I don't know what happened to it. The minister is to speak on any radio or TV program that the congregation is supporting. We had a local radio program, then we had a TV program. The minister is to be available for teaching Bible study classes on Sunday morning and Wednesday night. He is to attend teachers' meetings and conduct programs to teach the teachers. So you see there, that's the reason why that if you take classes like for the Georgia School of Preaching, then that's the reason why we like to give you our notes so that you'll have things in order. And then plus, like in my case, I have notes on the whole New Testament, every chapter, every verse. And so I give those things away free. And other people would do the very same thing. And so that helps you to help your congregation. The congregation at Fairmount's teaching the gospel, the harmony of the gospels, and I gave them my last copy of my harmony of the gospel questions. I got to run some more on. So any kind of thing like that, you're supposed to be done. Notice he is to be involved with the educational program of the congregation, working with the Bible school director. Guess what? If they don't have a Bible school director, guess who it is? Who is? The preacher. You'll be that, and you'll be thankful that you are, because you're going to make sure that they're teaching good materials. You know, if you're in a small congregation that way. He is to work, let me get there. He is to work with the elders and members in a personal work program, visiting the sick, shut-ins, conducting Bible study, etc. He is to aid in the training those to be involved in personal evangelism. And what I always try to get people to do, or preachers to do, either go take the Fishers of Men class somewhere if they're offering it, get qualified to teach that thing, or to do that of open Bible study. Learn how to use open Bible study, and then you teach it to a class. Like on Thursday night or Tuesday night, you teach a class for anybody that wants to learn personal work. Or you can do it on Wednesday night. Now, Brother Jim is teaching the Fishers of Men to our teenage class on Wednesday nights. And that's been very helpful for them and for him also. And so you're involved. He is to meet with the elders at regular meetings. Now, sometimes the elders want you to meet with them at least once a month. And sometimes every time they meet, they want you to meet with them because they want to ask you for your advice. But you have to remember they're elder meetings, and therefore whatever is said and done in there is stays there. You know, you don't go out and say, what's the elders going to do about this? You say, ask the elders. Well, you were in there, ask the elders. You don't go beyond that, just ask the elders. And so they sometimes if you're busy, if like at Conyers, I was really busy, and they have their meetings on Monday. Well, I had a Bible study on Monday. So they said, all right, what time's your Bible study? And I told them, I said, okay, we'll move our time up 30 minutes. You come in, we'll talk to you, and then you can leave. Okay. So they accommodated me. Any other considerations as deemed necessary for the work of the ministry. So you make an agreement, and we'll talk about that because I've already gone 5 minutes over. Okay. You'll take a little break and come back and do like we always do. Take a break and get back. Okay. Okay. Let me see here. Come on, more. Let's see, Paul. Okay, we got down to number 17 on this agreement. Now, let me make sure this is the agreement that I had. Now, you may have to change some things because some of the laws changed since the change in Washington. Some of the tax codes have changed. And I'm going to show you in a minute some names, and and I'm going to send you this with my notes. You'll get this, and you can contact some of these people, and they can tell you. There is a form, and I was going to give you the form, and I could in no way could I get it fixed so you could see it, and so. But I took the course to learn how to do that, and they may still continue to offer the course. But there's a book, and that you can do. It helps you. This here, I got this from a fellow who went for about 5 years in a row to IRS being audited, and and he finally got it down like this. And basically, they can't do anything. It's just like if you work for UPS, and UPS says you got to wear a brown shirt and brown pants or brown shorts, and you got to have a pair of steel-toed boots. Then that's required in your job, so therefore it's deductible. And so that's the same way it is with a preacher. And so here it is. Now here's the salary agreement. Bobby D. Gayton will receive a salary of $1 million a week. Now, we'll just say, all right, Bobby D. Gayton will receive a salary of $1,500 a week. He will also receive $1,500 for each vacation, not to exceed 2 per year that is taken. Now I'll stop there. When I retired, I had 4 weeks of vacation. But the reason I had 4 weeks of vacation is because I did not take a raise. Okay. When I started getting my VA money, I didn't take a raise. I wanted vacation time so I could spend time with my children and my wife. So, but you have that in there. Now, the reason I say that, they'll say, well, we're going to pay you 52 times a year. So that, and to the weeks that you're on vacation, so you still get a paycheck. But what happened with me is that they gave me my regular paycheck, but they also paid me the same amount of money for vacation. In other words, I got double pay. But that was agreement with us as we, as they gave me raises. This was figured out so that I still got the same amount of money, but when I went on vacation, I had extra money. Okay, from this amount, the minister is to pay all of his expenses that are required for him to perform the above duties. From the agreed amount, blank is to pay the following: provide and maintain adequate housing for himself and his family, because that's what we moved into this house. The housing should be adequate for receiving guests and entertaining members of the congregation and others. Number 2, receive and entertain guests in his home and public dining establishment as the need arise in connection with his work. Now you want that on there because they're going to give you a housing allowance, and that helps you get to knock off that housing allowance. And if you're buying your house, it was now, unless they've changed it lately, it was that if you were paying whatever you were paying, say you're paying $1,000 a month, then you get that off, and then say out of that $1,000, 500 or 600 of it was interest rate. Well, you get to knock that off too, so you get $1,600. Then you follow me? In other words, it's a double thing. Now they may have changed that, If them congressmen and senators are not making extra money themselves, they probably try to change that. But then there's some concluding things, observation. Number 3, operate and maintain an automobile or automobiles as are needed in connection with his work as a minister. And most time, if a man is married and have children, they need 2 automobiles. He shall maintain a sufficient amount of insurance coverage on said automobiles. He is to maintain hospitalization coverage for his family, himself and his family. He is to purchase clothes for his work as a minister and maintain them on a regular basis. All right, stop there. They will say, IRS did say that you couldn't do that because you wore the clothes elsewhere, And what I always would say if they were to audit me was, well, I always do my work. No matter where I'm going, I'm still a preacher and I'm still a minister and I'm still a counselor and so forth. But what I did is that he says, purchase good clothes. I didn't knock off the clothes, but I used the having them cleaned and fixed and everything. I used that as an expense because only time I wore them was when I was going to church, and so I used that as an expense, but I didn't knock off my clothes. He has to purchase magazines, periodicals, and other reading material for his work as a minister. Basically, that is like the Gospel Journal and things of that sort. In other words, we're talking about church papers. He is to subscribe to the local newspaper so that he may be informed on the events of the community. So that gets you knocked that off. See, now you're going to work for $1,500 a week and whatever that comes out to a month, but yet you're going to knock all these things off that when you get ready to pay income tax. Now you get to knock all your expenses off of federal income tax, but you don't get to knock off the housing allowance off of Social Security. Okay. In other words, you do everything out through there, and then you take all your expenses off, and then you figure out your income tax. And in that, when you figure it, say if we knock it off, say for instance, you ended up with you were getting $12,000 a year for housing, okay? And then say the rest of your money, when you not got through with it, you had, if you was getting $1,500 a month times be $6,000, $72,000, and $12,000 of that was for housing. So that'd be $50,000. When you got through knocking off all your expenses, say you bought books and things of that sort, And so you knocked it down to $37,000. That's all the income tax you have to pay. But on Social Security, you have to add back to $12,000. That's $49,000 on Social Security because you don't get a break on Social Security on housing allowance. Okay. Now, again, if that hasn't changed, you have to check with someone, but that's the way it was when I quit, and that's the way that I still do it. So that's it. He is to purchase needed items for his office at home and at the church. In other words, if you need a computer at the church building and you don't want to buy you don't want to buy a laptop, then you can have one at the church building and one at home. But the one at home now, they're gonna say, how much time do you use it for entertainment? So what I do, I have a PC. I have two. I have an old one and a new one. And so when I bought it, I knocked it off because I use it in my work. And the old one, I play games on or whatever I want to do with. Now you can, when you buy something that big, if you buy, say a desktop system and you paid $1,000 for it, you can prorate it, take off so much every year, or you can take the full amount. I always took the full amount. Also, if you use your home as your office, you can knock off some of that, utility bills and things of that sort. And especially that if you don't have office at the church building, you're using your home for everything, then you can knock off so much. But a tax person would be able to tell you how much. He has to maintain life insurance on himself and family as neither he nor his family will become a burden to the church in the event of a death. He is to continue to educate himself as a minister. All of that education stuff is deductible off the top of your salary. Okay. Schooling, and schooling would be anything also your books, anything that you use to do your work, to educate yourself. He is to invest up to 15% of his base salary in either an IRA or some other retirement program. I had an SEP. That's what I had. Okay. Any questions? You sign it and all the elders sign it. And what you do there is you'll get this and you'll fix it the way you want it. And you make sure you type your name and their name and then sign out to the side. Okay. Now, B.J. Worth her husband was a Methodist preacher, and she was an accountant. And you can look up B.J. Worth tax on the internet. Sadly to say, Beverly passed away on September 2022. Now, Linda and I knew her because we took the course that she offered up, and Linda had already taken it one time, and we did it again in Chattanooga. Matter of fact, if you can find the book there, she quotes Linda in there. She uses her as one of her recommendation students because Linda, she could do this stuff. But you look at there, they give you a worksheet for housing and Social Security base. They give you a checklist, income date data, and also a list of referral tax consultants. Now, as you search for a new tax professional, I recommend someone who is an enrolled agent, EA they call them, and you can go to this place right here. And enter your zip code and you find one near you. You talk to them about the unique minister's income tax. You are different from anybody else when it comes down to taxes, income tax. Make sure they are aware that you are a special dual status taxpayer on your preaching. Now, like Jason, if you were going to keep your job and work, and then you was going to also preach part-time, but you had all these expenses, you still can do the dual status just on your preaching. The tax preparer listed below are being my students. That's Miss Worth's point, and have many years of experience. Be sure to provide them a copy of your 2020 tax returns. So this is 2020 when she was still alive. Also, you may still print out our organizer from worthfinancial.com. you can't do that. You can get over there, if you go on her thing, it's some downloading of the worksheet for housing and social security base. They are there. Also, a checklist is there, and you can download them. If I switch over, I could show you to them. I don't think that I put them. No, I don't have them. I put them here, but you can't see them, and that's the thing. But here are some of the referred tax consultants. These are students of Mrs. VJ Worth. And so you can see that there's one in Fort Wayne, Indiana, Decatur, Illinois, Akron, Indiana, and Warsaw, Indiana. And she was from that area up there. And you could talk to them in reference to that. And they will actually, they will do your work. You have to send it to them. And once, what I did is I got somebody to do my work, help me do my work. And once I understood what they did, and I bought her book, I did my own. I just kept up with it. After I went up there, I done it on my own. Then I went up there. Well, I found out that maybe I was doing some things wrong, but the IRS accepted them. So I didn't go back and amend anything. I just left it. I may have owed them some money, or they may have owed me some more. Now, sometimes when you see, I would get rid of 2/3 of my income. And so, okay. Any question on the finances? Did I cover what you wanted to talk about, Jason? I can't hear you.
Yes. Like, so I guess I talking in reference to like having like investments in like stocks and things like that. So that was, I guess, I mean, is that okay? I mean, I know, like, going into ministry, I know people are in different, places in their life, because I invest in the stock market and all that stuff. And
well, now see, you can do like, again, a 401, and you take your 401 money and you put it in stocks, but you still have a 401. Like I did that, and I had the SEP, and I put mine in electrical, what do you call them things? It deals with utilities. That's what it is. I had mine in some utility funds, and then I bought the Dollar General. We made some good money with Dollar General, but see, it's still in my SEP in her 401k. So that's what you do. You set up whatever you set up, and then you put your money in there, and then you talk to someone, or you can do it yourself if you want to train yourself to swap stocks and all that kind of stuff. I didn't want to mess with it, and so I let somebody else do it. And they charge you about $40, $50 a year to keep up your account. That's all they charge. That's at Edward Jones. I think we pay him $40. I pay him $40, and then pays him $40 to do what he's doing for us right now. And that's like sending our check, paying our income tax out of it, all that kind of stuff. But I would recommend trying to get in touch with one of these people here, because they may be able, some of these people, someone is redoing her book, BJ Worth's tax information, her book. Someone is going to keep that up, because she had it done and she kept up with all the tax laws that changed. She would tell you in the 20, like this year, this year would be for the 20, next year, 2023 will be for 2021. But see, there's already stuff come out in 2022. You'll be doing it for 2022, but there's some stuff already coming out that's going to start in 2023. And she gives you the heads up on that. So you need to do this or this or this. And they're supposed to go back and redo that. Since I don't fool with income tax, I carry mine to a CPA now, because of we have a house that we bought and we rent it, so to speak, there for our granddaughter, and she's paying us for it. So they know how to operate all that stuff, and I don't have to mess with it. I don't want to mess with IRS. Okay, anything else on that? Okay, what I want to do, let me see. Have you seen, Jason, do you use eSword?
yes, I use eSword, and I go back and forth. I've actually got a few, but eSword and Logos are what I use the most.
Okay, well, I'm not going to show you mine. I mean, did you buy a system?
And when I say use, I'm still learning how to use them.
Okay. Well, let me see. I have some. What number do you have on Logos?
9.
9.
Mhm.
Okay. So you haven't done 10 yet?
Sorry, it's the free version of 9. I haven't purchased the.
Oh, you just using the free stuff.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, if I remember, I have. Do you go online or do you have it on your computer?
I have it on my computer.
Okay, I have about 300 books that I've copied
And
over PDF to Word, and you can put them
Mhm.
on there.
Yeah,
Oh,
I've done one. I took
oh,
a
you?
commentary and tried to and to see, like, it takes some kind of finagling, or I haven't figured out how to make it look exactly like the book.
Yeah, well, I even tried to take one of the books that done it right, that came up right, and clear it all out, and then take another book and stuck it in there. It still didn't. It still scattered it that time. But the thing of it is have the book in there that you can go and somebody says, so and so said something, and you say, I got that book, so you can go over there and get it and highlight it and stuff like that. But I have a lot of those old books because they became they're copyrighted, but they're out there for you to do whatever you want to do with them. And you can download them free and so forth. You download a PDF, you can transfer it over to Word, and then you can copy it on there. Okay. The preacher's office, or as we call it, the study. And so in this lesson, we will notice some important aspects of the study and the study habits of the preacher evangelist. And like I said, some of these I changed back, went back. I was just using preacher, then got to the point where it applies to the evangelist too. He's got to have the same tools and same kind of expenses and so forth to be taken care of. And so let me move that right there. The preach the word is the work of the preacher. That's just simply the work of the preacher, of the evangelist. And the Bible points that out to us. And I'm going to type in these right quick. And he says to us, Paul, when he wrote to Timothy, and well, mine's taking all day to get there. It says, till I come, give attendance to reading, to exhortation, to doctrine. He's talking to a preacher. And then down in verse 16, take heed unto thyself. We've already mentioned this. That's the reason why we spend a lot of time talking about what a preacher preaching or a preacher is all about. He says, unto the doctrine, continue in them, for in doing this thou shalt both save thyself and them that hear thee. And then the passage that we use a lot, 2 Timothy chapter 2 and verse 15, study to show thyself approved unto God, a workman that needeth not be ashamed, but rightly dividing the word of truth. And so we, a lot of times we use that passage, and it actually, when we go and look at the original words there, we find that it means to give forth diligence. In other words, you're to spend a lot of time. Matter of fact, looking at it on my other screen over here, I think I moved y'all, and that word means that word means active, diligent, zealous, earnest, according to Mr. Thayer. And so that's what your study is supposed to be. Now, again, and you have to realize in 2 Timothy 2:15, Paul is talking to Timothy, who had miraculous gifts, and he tells him he needs to study. So what does that tell us? See, basically, it tells us that maybe miracles are ceasing. Maybe this divine guidance is ceasing because the word of God has been written, because Paul has written all of his. This is his last letter. And so, but the thing of it is that here's someone who has miraculous powers, but he's telling to give diligence, to study diligently. And not only that, he points out, there that the way that they're supposed to study, rightly dividing the word of God. And then also in Hebrews chapter 5, verse 12, when for the time you ought to be teachers, he says you have need that one teach you again, which be the first principles of the oracles of God, and how to become such as have need of milk and not of strong meat. For everyone that uses milk is unskillful in the word of righteousness, for he is a babe. Be strong, but strong meat belongs to them that are full age, even those who by reason and use have their senses exercised to discern both good and evil. And so also Peter tells us to, if you recall, to as newborn babes desire the sincere milk of the word. And so that's what we have to do. And I always like Second Peter 1, 5, and 6 also, where he says, and besides this, give all diligence, add to your faith virtue, virtue knowledge, and to knowledge temperance, and temperance patience, patience to godliness, and godliness brotherly kindness, and brotherly kindness charity. I should have put 7 there also. So we'll highlight that too, just to go back and look. And so since that's the case, then we need a place to study. All right. Where to have your study. So I'm trying to every place that I preached at had a study. At Dallas, Georgia, they had a nice 3-bedroom home. You pulled into come up the driveway, turn right into the carport. There's the house. Right here's the wall for the carport, and right here, built onto that house, was my office. Big old room with shelves and everything already made, a desk, everything. It was just great to have a place that way because it was at home. I was part-time, and I could study and do all what I could do. And it was, to me, it was great. See, I moved to Weld, then to Conyers, and when I moved to Cartersville, we didn't have room for me at the church building. We had a little small library up there. This is old office that we had up there, but I didn't go up there. I studied at home because they just didn't have room for it. And they said, you can study at home, you can be at home, and so forth. So there were times when I would go to the church building and work, but most of the time I did my work at home until we built a new building. And when we built a new building, I had office. Okay, so the use of the word study, we mean the place where you keep your tools. Okay, where you have that study is important. Now, this is where you will spend a lot of your time is in study. Now, we've already talked about how that we have work to do, and that work means that yes, we are not only a preacher, but we're being paid as a preacher, and to be able to preach and to be able to teach, you got to study. That's part of your work. Now, the other things you do, like visit the hospital, do personal evangelism, and teach people the gospel of personal evangelism, all Christians are supposed to be doing the very same thing. And so you're being paid really to study and to present your sermons and your teaching in Bible classes to that of the congregation. And so you will spend a lot of time in your study, either if you're part-time or full-time. You'll be spending a lot of time studying if you're preaching twice, teaching on Sunday, preaching twice on Sunday, and teaching on Wednesday night. And that's very difficult for someone who is working another job. I've done that. So I know. I mean, I kept a 8 to 4:30 job at the Veterans, Georgia Department of Veterans Service. And then plus I preached Sunday, teach Wednesday. So you spend a lot of time. So the conditions under which you study have so great influence on what you produce from your study. And that's the reason why you have to see where your study is going to be. Like, when I quit doing full-time work, then I moved out and I had to buy bookcases and stuff for my books, which are behind me. And some of them I gave away to one of the young men that was here at Cartersville, and he's preaching full time. And I just called and told him to come up, and I said, I'd pull books out and say, would you like to have these? And he said yes. And then I left a bunch of books at the church building, and the books that I was going to get rid of or put in our church library at Cartersville. And I told Corey, I said, you look at all these books and get out what you want. I said, I'm not going to use them. I got 9,000 books on the local site. I don't really. But I have a lot of these books now because a lot of people have put their books on CDs. And you can, like I said, you can add them to the Logos program, or you can just go to them while you're working the Logos program, put them on another monitor and use them. And so that's what I do. And so, you really want to have a good place to study. Now, where you have your study is determined by two factors. Number one, there are personal tastes for preachers, which naturally vary with people. So you have to take that in consideration. How am I going to react wherever I choose? And, you may want a lot of space and things of that sort. Number two, circumstances at different place determines a decision on this point. You have to make sure that you're comfortable and that this place meets your taste. Okay, not someone else. Don't let, if you're going to decorate, you decorate way to, Brother Corey, I'll get there sometimes early on Sundays when was there on Sunday mornings after he started preaching, and he'd drive up and he wouldn't have a coat on. And whether he didn't have a coat on because he had a lot of his coats, suit coats and everything at the church building. And on Wednesday night, if he wore a coat, he wore a sports coat, and it was hanging at the church building in his office. So he would just pick up his jacket and so forth. And plus he's got decorated with all of those people that wear orange, Tennessee. He's a Tennessee nut. So, but that's the way he do it. But see, to me now, it wouldn't bother me with all that kind of stuff in, but I wouldn't decorate that. A lot of my stuff that I had was military, about Vietnam and so forth. And that's things that I'd just like to have in the library. So everybody, you have to make sure, about these two factors. And then get down to the idea that studying at the church building, there's advantage of it. And it releases that much room at your residence for the clutches of books, and often adds to the attractiveness of the residence, and depend upon how you keep your study. Now mine, because I'm restudying Greek, my whole desk on this side is filled with Greek grammars and books and so forth about Greek, New Testament Greek. Probably 30 books over there. And that usually is not the case. Usually all those books are behind me on this side in a bookshelf. But I wanted them here in case when I was studying Greek that I could just pick the book up and have to get up and go and run. But I'm to the point now that I'm going to be putting those back in the shelves. And so I can clean off my desk, because my desk, my wife and I have different bedrooms. We both are on CPAPs. And I toss and turn, and I wake her up, and she gets up because she has immune disease and so forth. So she has a bedroom and she has an office. And I have the biggest bedroom with a bathroom in it, shower and everything. And then I have extra place over here because this room was made for a disabled person. And so this has my office in it. On the doors right there. On this side of that door is my office. And I got my bookcases on this side over here, and just an open space right here, so I can get up and go to the restroom or whatever I want to do. But the point is, I'm comfortable. I can close the door. Sometimes when my 16-year-old granddaughter is here, I have to close the door. Linda doesn't bother me. We have a cat that wants to get up here and sits behind your computer and sit in your lap. And so I have to close the door to keep all of the distractions out. You have to realize it's my wife, my daughter, my 3 grandchildren, women, girls, and 3 great-grandgirls. So it's 8 of them against me, okay? And then 2 female dogs and 2 female cats. So I stay in here, in my study, and I do try to keep it clean and so forth. It probably makes you more available to the public when you have it at the church building. I loved it up there because people would come by, and sometimes you could set up Bible studies, and you have a lot of people come by wanting money and so forth like that. And we had somebody at Cartersville here. We had someone who take care of it. He was one of the elders, and plus he was a retiree from the Air Force, and plus he was a retiree from a truck driver. So he knew all about the traveling. People come and say, yes, I left New Orleans and I'm on my way to Missouri. He says, what are you doing in Cartersville? You had to come up to go to Missouri, you go out straight up. He said, why'd you come this way? Now you're going up, like that. And so he'd catch a lot of times people telling lies. And so, but you would be more available to that of the public. And I've had people come in when I was at Conyers and even here come in, and they just need somebody to talk to. And so I'd set them down and talk to them. If it was a woman, I would pick up the phone, and my wife worked. And so I'd call another woman, to come over to the church building while I'm with someone there. And before she got there, the front door of the church building was where it comes into my office there, that we have a Bible class, it would be standing open. But also my office door would be open because she was a woman. And so that's just the way I dealt with it. And then if I had an appointment for a woman to come, that person, that lady would be there. It usually was an elderly lady, one of the elders' wives. Okay. But sometimes this arrangement makes your work of study easier than at home, particularly if children are allowed to interfere. And like I said, I have my grandchildren come over a lot, and then they bring our great grandbabies over. But I usually, when they pull up, especially now since I have great grandchildren, they're small, I get up, set down everything, and I close my door and I go play with the great grandchildren, So also, it might be awkward not to use the study at the church building if the church provides one, and especially if it isn't up to date. Now, when I say up to date, that means that you've got cable TV, and that means you've got Wi-Fi or access to internet, because you're going to be doing your work. I mean, a lot of things now, like you can go over and use Logos online. You can use also Word and PowerPoint. They call them something else. I forget what it's called. But you use all those online. You don't have to buy all that stuff. Many students of family life think that it would be well for preachers to maintain and study at the church building rather than to spend so much time at home. Okay. They say, well, he's at home all the time. Well, what do you expect him to be if he's studying? He studies there, And so it's just like what I told you, that someone said, well, we're going to miss your vehicle being at the church building when we come by. They knew where I was. I mean, these were preachers at other congregations that would come by and say, well, Bobby's up there studying. Look at here's his vehicle. Well, why can't they do that at home? I'm not out here cutting the grass or something like that when I should be studying. But there are advantages, but one needs to consider the advantages of having your study at your residence. There you have a quicker access to your books at all times. There are a number of times that I would be at the church building when I lived in the preacher's house. We had my office there, and I'd be at the church building, maybe teaching a class, something like it, and I needed a book, but it wasn't there at the, is it at home? And so the same would be that if you had them at that church building and you're at home and all of a sudden you wanted to study something other, well, you either if you don't have a computer with all that on there, you have to go back to the church building. So, so you have the ups and downs about both. Brethren are less liable to borrow and lose your books if you keep them at home. I've had that, and some of the books were a very couple of them were books that I wouldn't have given away. Well, one was called by Charles Rutherford, The Jehovah's Witness, Millions Now Living Will Never Die. Well, I finally found me one of those, but I had another one that was on masonry. And my nephew, I don't know whatever happened to it. He died, and so I don't know what happened to it. But I was very careful about my books, and I think I had, over the years, I probably lost about 10 books over the years, so 50 years of preaching. Brethren and the general public are less likely to kill your time if your study is at home than if it is at the it should be if it is at the church building where they feel that you have an office. Brother Jim, remember Scott Polk. Scott had his own business of cutting grass and everything, and he would just walk in. A lot of times I'm sitting like here, I'm facing y'all, I'm sitting here facing, and he comes in the back. He slipped in one time very slowly, and then he said something to me, and it scared me, and I have post-traumatic stress disorder, and I was mad. It upset me so bad. I told him, I said, "You're lucky that I didn't pull out a gun and shoot you." I said, "Don't you ever come in here and do that again." I mean, the door is unlocked. I left it unlocked so people could come. But after that, I started locking the door. If you wanted in, you knocked on the door, or you had to have a key. And if you have a key, I can hear you come in. But they ought to respect you. That's the whole idea of me. But he never did do me that way. I said, so, but people will come in, and they want to talk to you, and My problem was when I got the church building, all the veterans that I knew and all the veterans work I had done, they knew where I preached, and they knew that my office was there. And when they had a veteran problem and with a VA, they came to my office or would call me, but I would help them because I was trying to teach them also. So, you know, it works both ways. Any thoughts on that? Okay, then the work of study. This is so important that it would be most difficult to exaggerate it. It is your number one work is study. That's your number one work. Now, the overflow or the flowing out of your work is your preaching and your teaching. If you think that preaching is your number one work, and I agree, and I deny that the two statements are contradictory, for the proper preaching demands more diligent study. Now, I went back, and you know, we've already made reference to 2 Timothy chapter 2 and verse 15. Study does not appeal to a lazy man. Now, I'll say that, and I know a man, and he is not lazy, but he got to the point where he waited to Saturday night to get ready for Sunday morning, and then when he went home Sunday morning, it fixed his sermon for Sunday night. And some way or another, the elders found that out, and they let him go. But he was busy. I mean, he did mailings and stuff like that, you know, and but his priorities was wrong. He should have done his preaching and Bible lessons, which these Bible lessons were just fine, and his sermons were too. Don't get me wrong; he preached the truth and preached good lessons, and I have some of his works. So you need to make sure that word study, like I said, the American Standard says be diligent, and also does the MLV. The word there means active, diligent, zealous, earnest, according to Mr. Thayer. So in your study habits, above all consideration, do not wait until the last minute to make preparation for your sermons and your classes.
And Bobby, I don't know if are you going through your notes?
Yeah.
I was gonna say the Logos software is still on the screen.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's right. Dummy me. Well, since we're there, then I'll just go ahead and show y'all. Y'all see that, right? Can you see my pointer moving on it? Okay. See, if you'll notice me, I have across through here. Now on the screen y'all are on, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Greek books open over there because that's how I study. And over here, you see, this is the Greek interlinear. Let's see if it'll change. This one here is the majority text Greek. Now, if you look at this interlinear, you'll see the Greek, then under it, you'll see a literal translation. Then there's the third thing down is the original Greek word. It's already gone. I'm not going to go back. Here the words are, the original text, the majority text right here. I keep it there because if you'll notice, it has all of the markings on it. You see the little bitty markings there, like it's kai, auto, tuto, di, spude. That you make those a little louder where those little things are. And so, but over here, it does not have that. See, so what you have in an interlinear, and I have, let me see if I have everything there. Let me put it right here. You see it right here? All right, I have everything there, inline, interlinear. So I have the manuscript, the English literal translation, the Greek llama, that is the original word, and then Strong's number, which I don't have those on there all the time, then morphology, and that's telling you like this right here. It tells you that that's a conjunction. This is a relative pronoun, nominative, singular, neuter. And then these little things down here, if y'all let me drop down, let me find one right here. Nope. Those little blanks there, that's the tense, voice, mode, and number. There's a number, you hit on it and it'll carry over and tell you everything about that Greek word, okay? So you can fix that. And then you have that. And then this is what you like when you have is that these guides, that 2 Peter 1:5, and it's going to go through all of my books, all the way down through there that I have over here, these nearly 9,000 books. If this verse is mentioned in there, it's going to go down. It does all of those things over there. Commentaries, it does everything. And it does that. And then you can make your own notes. And I probably will forget this, so I'll tell you now since we're doing it. I wish that what I had done is that when I was studying, that I would have, I mean, now when I got a computer and you could do it, that I could actually go over and copy this, not with the numbers in there, not those the Strong's numbers or the text, the tense mood numbers down here, just the Greek, the literal translation, the original word, and this right here, the CRN, have that up there, and then below it, have that of the King James American Standard and the Modern Literal Version, and then my notes. And if you do that, you can do it on the computer, and you're making your own commentary. And I have a bunch of those over here on this side over here where I've made my own commentary. And there are books like Marion Fox will give you of the Greek and everything. He's a Greek teacher, and they're free. It's his notes on the books of Romans to the book of Jude. And then Greek, he does something similar to that. I was doing that too, but then I found him that he was doing it. So I got it. So I have all these open, and on this one I have the King James, American Standard, Modern Literal. Now I have about 30 Bibles on here that I could open up. Then there's that tense. Let me show you, hit that thing, see if it opens up. Because I have so much open, it takes a little time. You see this right here? This is the aorist tense. Now watch it. It says aorist tense. Let's see if it pops. Oh, see, look, it's going to tell you what it is. The aorist tense is characterized by its emphasis on particular action. That is, the concept of a verb is considered without regard of past and present or future. It's like having a camera. You took a picture like that. You have a beginning, but it keeps on going. Then you go all the way back. It started somewhere back here. Things like that. And you can, and so I don't have to remember a lot of things because it's on my computer. And then you can look up every word in the Greek text right here. You can actually sign them if you'll see the different colors over here, lighter right here, every one that sticks like this right here is an indicative verb. Every one like this is a imperative, that is a command. And if it's underlined, it's an infinitive. See, I've got them fixed down over here. And that's there. You just assign colors to them. Then over here, I have, like I said, over here where y'all are, where y'all are. Let's see here. All right. I was going to do this probably next week. Uh-oh, I lost it. I didn't lose it. It's down there somewhere. All right, come on now. Didn't come back up, did it? Well, it's down there somewhere. But anyway, I have, like I said, different things open over there on that. And I was going to bring it over and show it to you, but let me put my notes back. So Logos is a good thing, and I can also show you eSword. I take on eSword, everything's free. I take. Well, not everything, because if I have them on Logos, I don't want them on eSword. So that's the
can
idea.
you download them off of eSword? Like, I mean, I know they're like a lot of like out of the side of the software. Or is it just inside the software?
It's just it's inside. You can't go over there and download them as a PDF. I'm trying to think. No, it goes into the program. Yeah.
Yeah, because I know they've got those modules, I believe is what it is.
Yeah, you have to do it that way. But now you can find some of those books. If you search just for that book, you'll find PDF on some of them, because that's what they did. That's what they're doing. A lot of those books are out there, and you just have to get them. So that's talking about studying. I got books down here later, but it's interesting since you mentioned it, in reference to that being over there. Okay. Let me see. Your time should be budgeted for study. You have to make an orderly arrangement of that, just as you do your monetary income and outgo. Some sacrifices will simply have to be made for study. Now, like I said, my best time to study is in the morning, but now sometimes at night I like to study. I get something on my mind. I've got my stuff right here, and I can come sit right down and I can look up and everything. My biggest problem is that I get so interested in what I do and I forget what the time it is. And sometimes I sit here and I turn around and look, and it's 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. And see, now I usually get up around 7. And so the next day I kind of drag after I get up, and then I work about an hour. So I just drag. And so you have to set time. And especially if you do part-time work, you have to make sure you have the time. I start on Sunday afternoon. I get back from Fairmount. If I don't take a nap, if I don't take a nap, I work on my sermon for next Sunday. And if I take a nap, when I get up, I work on the sermon for next Sunday. And most of the time I got it kind of skeleton, and then I work on it Friday and Saturday. And my class is already fixed. So, because I've been blessed, and since I taught some courses at Georgia School of Preaching, and got all my notes and everything. So I still have all of those, and that's what they're studying. So I got it made. Okay. Psychological factors influence in learning. Motivation. Motivation means having a desire to do something. And I'll tell you this, what I do, preaching and teaching and studying, I love what I do. I just put it that way. I love what I do. And, it's hard to give things like that up, because I just love what I do. Not only in reference to preaching and teaching, but counseling and helping people when they're grieving and things like that, because that's the work that I was doing. And I just love what I do. So it's not tiring like other works were good. It doesn't get sometimes if you're working in a mill or something like that, you just get tired of doing the same old thing every day. You get in, you push a little button to make carpet. You sit there and watch it all day long, but it's not that way if you're a preacher, because there's always some study you got to do, some other problem may come up, things of that sort. So the psychological factors influences that of learning, and you have to love what you're doing when it comes down to that of preaching and teaching. And see, and that's the thing, if members of the church would learn that that's what they're supposed to do, and they're supposed to love the Lord with all their being, and to love their neighbor like they love God. And if we get that across to people and teach them about repentance, then things would be a lot better in the church. So you got to have motivation. You are said to be motivated when you study if you know exactly what you want to get from your study, if you are really interested in getting it. In other words, when I was studying, I'd studied about the Holy Spirit, and I had taken, I was doing my master's program at the School of Religion, and they had a lectureship, and I couldn't attend the lectureship. I mean, I didn't have the money. I was going to school on VA, and plus the church was paying me my salary, and they allow me to go to school. But I just could not go down there and stay 3 or 4 days and pay motel room. They had special rates, but I just couldn't do that. And plus, I didn't want to leave my wife and my daughter all that week. And so they said, if you buy the tapes and take these courses, we'll give you 5 hours. You have to outline every lecture. Well, I said, okay. I outlined those, and the other part of this is that my outlines must have been very good. They took them and put them in the library, for that the year. But one of the lectures was on the Holy Spirit, and so I'm sitting there and I'm typing on a typewriter, as I'm listening about this, or maybe I was writing it out. I outlined it anyway, and then I guess I typed it. I think that's what it is. I outlined it and Linda typed it, not a problem. But it was on the Holy Spirit. And I'm sitting there writing like that, and I just put my pencil down. I said, I have never in my life heard someone put things together as he did. It was on Acts 2:38. I mean, he believed the same thing I did, but the way that he approached it, and it helped me more than anything in reference to learning about Acts 2 and verse 38. That one sermon. And I got so interested in it, I forgot about everything else I was supposed to be doing. And I outlined it and everything, and eventually I preached it. But it helped me. What it did, it took Acts chapter 2, and then it jumped over to Acts chapter 8. He says, now watch what takes place. Acts 2, the apostles has the power to, receives the Holy Spirit and has power to lay hands upon them, but it doesn't say he does there. It just says, and you shall receive the gift of the Holy Spirit. Well, what is it? Well, Philip goes over to Samaria in Acts chapter 8, and he preaches the gospel, but he can't give them any miraculous gifts. Peter and John come down and give them miraculous gifts. So what is the gift of the Holy Spirit? It was a miraculous manifestation. In other words, they were able to speak in different tongues. They were able to heal and so forth like that. The ones that laid their hand upon, and actually everybody in the first century, as the gospel was going, was getting the gift of the Holy Spirit, the miraculous work of the Holy Spirit, so they could preach and teach the gospel to the lost because they didn't have Bibles. They had the Old Testament, but didn't have the New Testament because it hadn't been written. And so things like that, and it just blew my mind, because he condensed it, and he was a student of Brother Franklin Camp, and I was too, but he had known Brother Camp for many, many years. They were pretty close to the same age, but he did a great job. So you have to be really interested. It's hard for you to come along and say, well, I got to study this because the elders want me to teach on modest apparel. I got tired of preaching on modest apparel every year, modest apparel, and so forth. So you get really interested in it. And what I did on modest apparel, one time I went online and got pictures of drawings of the early clothing that they wore. And people, I'd never seen it before, so I thought I'd do that. And then there's some there. And so, you showed what people wore. Then you have to have consideration. By this, we mean focusing your full attention, the full power of your mind in the material you're attempting to learn. In order to concentrate effectively on your work, you should first of all be ready to do that work. In other words, you got everything you need. You sit down and you're going to do your work. Now, if you're at home, kids may interrupt you. Telephone may interrupt you, but the telephone may interrupt you at work, also, and things like that. And you have to be ready to do your work. But if you're, if something stops you from doing that, then you're going to have to after you get through doing what you're doing, the other thing you're going to do, you have to get your concentration back. This is what, get back to it. And sometimes, now it's even worse. I forget what I was, maybe my thought line. And so now when I'm interrupted that way, I have to sit here for a little bit longer to get my thoughts back the way I want them. So then you have to have reaction. We already have seen that learning is an active process, not just absorbing. You have to be able to, you're absorbing what it is, but you're going to have to make sure that you're going to anticipate, what does this mean? How am I going to get this over, and things like that. So one good way to get the proper reaction is to ask the question, what should I get from this information that I got? Then you put it in order so that you can deliver that. And so then you have to help with that. Then we talk about organizing. We cannot learn a subject effectively simply by memorizing all the facts. I memorized passages and didn't realize everything that was in the passage. Like we said, let not your heart be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me. Jesus spoke that to the 12 apostles. He didn't speak it to me, he didn't speak it to you. He spoke it to them. He's talking directly to them what's going to take place. But how many times do we use that? And I've used it numerous times in funerals, and then not just stop and think about, well, here's Jesus telling his disciples, here's 12 men that's going to receive the baptism of the Holy Spirit. He says, let not your heart be troubled. In other words, I'm leaving you, but I'm going to come back. And where I am, that's where you're going to be, And so we have to make sure that we can use this information that we put together in our sermon. And I got now, because I use PowerPoint, and if you, Jason, if you use PowerPoint, up under PowerPoint, you put notes. And I got where I put a lot of notes down there. Even I may not use them. Like this coming Sunday, I'm dealing with something or other. And as I was studying, I come up on where all the passages were. So I just copied the passages because this is where this one word is found. And so I copied it, and it's the word about sin. And I put them in the bottom of my PowerPoint. But I'm not going to sit up there and read 30, 40 passages. I'm just going to refer to them. So there's a number of passages that you could read. Like it, and they'll fly up on the screen, but they're going to have time to write them all down. And I'm sure I'm not going to, type them up for them. I mean, well, I would give them to them if they come and say, well, I'd like to have all of those, I would make a way to get all of them, which you can do that. But we cannot learn. We must see how the facts fit into the whole picture. That's what we're trying to do, is get that whole picture. We need to take a look at the whole before trying to learn certain specific points of it. The whole thing there. When you preach on the church, so I'm going to preach on the church. What are you going to do? Are you going to talk just about the builder? Or are you going to talk about all the prophecies and so forth? And sometimes we end up with, like I just got through preaching 4 sermons on heaven. And then one of the elders was up there, Brother Bohannon was up there on the first one. And he says, you need to teach that at Cartersville. And I said, well, maybe I'll do that in Vacation Bible School. And he said, that's what you need to do. So Vacation Bible School comes, I'm going to preach on, I'm going to teach a class on a study of heaven. And so, but you have to get all the facts. And sometimes we read passages in reference to that of heaven, or just passages, and we're applying them for something else, but it has something there to deal with that of heaven. That not sure be troubled. He says, where I go, you're going to come. So he said, don't be troubled. You're going to be with me. You're going to be with me again. You're going to be with me. You're going to be where I'm at. And not only that, later in 1 John 3, verse 1 and 2, he says we're going to have the same kind of body he's got. See, but sometimes we don't put all that kind of stuff together. But when we do, then what are we going to do with all this information we got? And so there are points that we're going to try to make, but we want to see the whole picture at first. Then comprehension, this is a real goal that the order that the other 4 have led us to. Comprehension is similar in meaning, that should be, to understanding. In other words, do I comprehend? Am I comprehending what the passage is saying? Your child, and fix that one, repeated, or a child. That might be better. A child repeated. Now watch this. This is one reason why I'm glad I'm using my note. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands. See, which is that republic for which it stands. See, he didn't comprehend what he was saying. And we do the very same thing. A typist may type a legal copy without knowing what the letter says. She's just sitting there typing. She's looking at the word, but she doesn't know what it says. She doesn't comprehend what she did. A lot of times we fill out forms, and when we have to fill out forms and place our name or other things within them, we try to make sure that we're comprehending, what this. It's just like voting. I've already voted. They have a thing on there about the ad valorem tax for people 65, 75, and 80. And what they wanted to do is it's going to be reduced. Well, one member of the church came to me and says, do you know what that means? I said, no, I haven't read it. So when I went to vote it, I read it, and I come back and say, hey, do you know what they were saying on that? Because she voted no. She says, because she was voting, she said, no, I voted no because I didn't vote on it because I didn't know what it meant. I said, what it meant was that it's going to lower your taxes on your property when you were 65, 70, and 75, and 80. It's going to lower your property tax, ad valorem tax, and basically do away with them is what they were doing. And she said, oh, no. And I said, yeah. So, but you have to comprehend that. Then repetition. Generally speaking, in order to remember a thing, we must repeat it. Material studied for 15 minutes a day for 4 days, or even for 15 minutes a week for 4 weeks, is likely to be remembered better than material studied an hour one time. Now, we all understand that. You keep studying, keep studying, keep studying. Brother Bobby Wood, that's how he memorized passages. He writes them out. In other words, if he's trying to learn Jesus wept, he wouldn't do it. But he put down John 11:35, and he looked in his Bible, Jesus wept, and he'd sit there and Jesus wept, and he'd write down. He'd write probably sometimes 10, 15 times. Flip paper over. He'd use more paper than anybody ever seen in my life, because that's the way he did every verse. Hebrews 10:25, Mark 16:16. That's the way he memorized. That's the way he had to do it. And it's not like some of us. We can look at a passage and study it right out of the Bible, and then we memorize it. And so. But I used to type mine up for my sermons, and I'd have an outline, but I'd have all my passages on one other page, and I'd bring it. That's how I studied. I memorized those passages, or try to memorize all of them. If not, then it's laying right there for me to read. So although repetition is essential to learning, repetition alone does not guarantee learning. Again, you may over and over and over and over again, you got it memorized, but what does it mean? How is it used in my life? How can I make the application to it, see? And so on. Any questions or thoughts? Because we're going to stop. I done gone overtime. All right. I'll grade your sermon one of these days. And your test. And we got 2 more weeks, and we have if we run out on the last day of things, then what we'll do is maybe do some review work, because we need to finish. A lot of times, some of the other, you take, if we all were in class, we would take the class time for you to take the test. You'd come for that purpose. People that was autism would not have to come, but the person who was taking for credit would come and they'd do the test inside the classroom. And so we got continuing your education. Last thing we'll talk about. Also, we'll finish what we're talking about here about study, and then we'll talk about the preacher and his library. And see, I already showed you what I was going to show you. So I might try to pull up that eSword too, see if I can switch them that way. Anything else? If not, y'all have a good weekend. And go Dogs. Are they playing this week?
Yeah, they play
Florida.
Florida, yeah, Florida.
Thanks, Bobby.